All right, so we have our simple server up, it's serving images, but there is a drawback. If I request a specific resource, say foo or bar or foo/bar, anything along those lines, you'll notice every time we're getting the fern image. And that's because if we look back at our code, every request, no matter what this request is, we are always sending the contents of that one file. That's not really what we want. We want to actually respond to specific requests with a specific response. So that if I were to happen to say, rather than looking at the fern, I want to see the chess image, I would want that chess image served. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. What we really need to do first is take a look at this response structure. So if we find the node documentation, which is on nodejs.org, and if we come down to the HTTP library and we look deeply enough, we can find that the incoming response or request is actually this class, incoming message. And it has some events associated with it, and it has properties like you can actually extract the headers, the HTTP version, the method, and you should recognize all of these from the text that we talked about that comes with an HTTP request. But the one that we really want today, if we scroll down far enough, we'll see is message.url. So this property of the message object, that incoming message object, is actually culled from that incoming request, and it pulls out what the URL is. And you can see here the request.url is just that portion of the incoming request. So this tells us what the requested resource actually is. If we jump back to our code, what we want to do is we want to take a look at that request.URL. We would want to compare that to something like our chess image. Now we could put this inside an if statement and handle this as a series of nested ifs. But I think you can see that very quickly is going to get into some pretty ugly territory. A much better way of handling this challenge is the use of a switch statement. So switch in JavaScript is very much like switch in C++ or C#, that it takes in a value, in this case a string, but it could also be a numerical value, and it matches it against cases. So we're going to specify the case of chess. And it's important to add this leading slash, because that will always be a part of the URL string. So the way the case statement works is whenever it matches against chess, it's going to execute any code that follows that, followed by this break. So we want to take the existing code we've already written. We're just going to move that up underneath here. So now that if it is the case that we match our URL to chess, we will go ahead and open the file of fern or chess. In this case, we want that to be chess. So let's go ahead and add a second case for the fern. And then we can change this to chess. And you can see when we match against chess, we will load the chess file. We'll set the content type to image JPEG. We will send the contents of that file, and then we'll break, which ends our execution of the switch statement, which drops us out to this point, which we have nothing left to do. So we'll go ahead and exit our server. Or if the URL says fern, we're going to serve the fern. So let's see how that works in practice. So if I were to request the fern, we have the fern, and if we switch to chess, we'll see chess. Now if I try another term, like foo, you'll actually notice that we sit here and spin, and our browser thinks and thinks and thinks. And the reason for that is if we come back to our server, that request does not match either of these cases. So we're going to drop out of our switch statement without ever having sent a response.end. What's basically happened is our browser is still waiting for us to send a response, but we actually are never going to send a response. To fix this problem, what we actually want to do is add a default case. The default case is executed if none of the prior cases match. And what we'd want to do there is we basically want to send a message saying, hey, we couldn't find your image. That is, in HTTP terms, a status code of 404 for a resource not found. And we'll send the status message, resource not found. And the last step we'll want to do here is go ahead and end, which sends that response. So what we're doing here is we're just setting these two values in the response object, which will write those as the part of the header detailing what kind of response we're dealing with, and then we'll send that. And that is, of course, going to execute in any case where we can't match the incoming request URL. So we'll save those changes. We'll go ahead and restart our server. And now if we refresh on that page, you can see we are receiving a 404 error. And this is actually the page is being generated for us by the Chrome browser, because we haven't actually sent a page. If we wanted to send an actual 404 page, we would put that as the content here. So we could send HTML or just plain text, which is actually what I'm doing right now. You can see the response we get there is couldn't find it. But also, if we come and look at the network, we'll notice that the page foo is also giving a status code of 404, and there's our human readable error message as well. There's one more thing we'll want to do with this switch statement, and that's right now we're only accepting /chess. It might be nice if we also accepted chess.jpg and chess.jpeg, which are different ways we might expect a user to request a resource from us. This is not strictly speaking necessary, but it is a nice kind of clean thing to do, and it also demonstrates another feature of switch statements, which is a very nice feature, which we call fall through. So if we don't have a break statement, then we'll actually continue executing code after that. So you'll notice for chess.jpg and chess.jpeg, we don't have a break statement. So those both will fall down into this case and actually execute the same code as we set up for chess. And if we restart our server again, and take a look at, say, /chess.jpg, you'll notice we get the chess image, and JPEG, if I spell it correctly, that's a good demonstration of, again, our default case working, and we have our image.